Tonio Schachinger est autrichien. Il est né à New Delhi en 1992, où son père était en poste en tant que diplomate, et il vit aujourd'hui à Vienne. Tonio est romancier. Il a étudié la littérature et la langue allemande à l'université de Vienne et les arts du langage à l'université des arts appliqués de Vienne. Son premier roman, Nicht, publié, a été publié en 2019 aux éditions Kremayr Scheriau et a été nominé pour le prix allemand de littérature le plus prestigieux, le Deutscher Bucherpreis. Il y dresse le portrait d'Ivo, son personnage principal, qui nous raconte sa vie de footballeur professionnel en mettant en lumière à la fois les aspects positifs et négatifs de son existence. Son second roman, sorti en 2023, intitulé Echtzeitalter, est publié cette fois-ci chez Rowohlt Verlag. Son livre retrace le parcours d'un jeune homme scolarisé dans un internat prestigieux de Vienne et son passage à l'âge adulte. Ce second roman est à nouveau nommé pour le Deutscher Bucherpreis et la deuxième fois étant la bonne, il reçoit ce prix à 31 ans pour son second roman. À Lavigny, il travaille à l'écriture de son troisième livre.
Merci beaucoup, Sophie. I'm happy that you're here. It's the first time I'm reading in English. The book is not available neither in English nor in French. So this is a sample translation my publisher had made. And the translation is by Ruth Martin, with some small adaptations I did today together with Eva Šestak. I'm going to read, these are two short chapters from the start of the novel. The novel's name is Echtzeitalter, which in French would be L'âge du temps réel. And it's the chapter 3 and 4. It's about this young boy, Till, and his time in school. Vienna attracts weirdos. There are canonized weirdos like Helmut Seethaler, who, for decades, has been taking legal action against the city's public transport company to be allowed to tape his poems to the walls of bus shelters, and the so-called beer squire, a young man who is driven by some compulsion to ask women on the metro whether they'd like to go for a beer with him, but respond to the very rare yes by turning away at once and moving on to the next woman. There is the King of Sudan, an older man in a black suit, red tie and red beret, who you will find by Schottentor. He has 2 doctorates from the University of Alexandria and a megaphone. There is the old lady in the 6th district, who is waging a hopeless battle against graffiti and paints over each new tag with a pot of brown paint, no matter what color the building is. She is regularly taken to court by building owners to whom the brown rectangles seem uglier than the smearings they cover up. And, at least in the eyes of the state, she is a vandal to the same degree as the vandals she is combating. But what is special about Vienna are not its peculiar outsiders, not the little lark of Otterkring, a tiny man in a shepherd's check jacket who seems to always have been old, and who used to imitate bird songs in his falsetto voice on Kärntner Straße, or Valuliso, who has now even had a bridge named after him in the nudist area of the New Danube. Not the homeless people or the drug addicts, the junkies who sell poems in the 7th district, written and copied out in childish handwriting, some of them beautiful and sad, others sad and awful. The special thing about Vienna is the mad people with the bourgeois facade, who are more or less functional, but could never move away from here, because their anti-social behavior would never have so few consequences in any other city. People who don't live outside of society, but go about their jobs in protected areas with limited responsibility, in municipal authorities, private schools, or the police force, even if their lives are psychologically precarious. They could lose control on any given day because they are used to existing in a small habitat where they can write the rules to suit themselves and others have to follow them. And it's only when they cause a scene outside their usual environment, when, for example, they start hitting an American student during a Bergman movie at the film museum because, in their opinion, she was making too much noise. When they stab someone in the leg with their umbrella on the tram, when they systematically send lewd poems to young female writers through the post, when they start shouting because someone is drinking from a plastic bottle indoors. Only then it is obvious to everybody what those who are at such people's mercy already knew, that this is a mad person, somebody who should never be in charge of anyone else. Dolina, Till's form tutor, whose appearance his students would liken to Lord Voldemort's, although with his sparse strawberry blonde hair and bulbous nose, he looks more like the octopus who is continually infuriated by SpongeBob. Dolina, who always wears black with a loose, loden coat in winter that makes him look like a bat, is one of these mad people. For the past 30 years, his classes have had a special reputation. From the head teacher's point of view, they are valued for their above-average grades, the lowest dropout rate, his students' impeccable behavior, their inconspicuousness, their reticence. Understandable, then, that the head teacher, who alongside her work as school leader and chair of the Döbling Conservative Women's Group, also teaches history and as such has only one class in the lower school, chooses a Dolina class whenever possible. Nowhere else can she be so sure of tame students. When she enters the room, all the Dolina children are already in their seats. They stand up within half a second, keep quiet, and only sit back down when they are told to. And the fact that they do this not primarily out of respect for her, but of fear of the form tutor, is not something that the head or any other teacher care about. Dolina's colleagues give little thought to precisely what sanctions he imposes for bad behavior to make his students so much more compliant. For one thing, most of them have no sympathy for children who know by the age of 11 that they will inherit more than their teachers could ever earn, and who show it too, when they get the chance, who can be unbelievably condescending and cruel. And for another, no one except Dolina's students knows what really happens in his classes. What the head teacher might at least know is that in the course of their school career, this class, like all the other Dolina classes before them, will get extremely poor results in one single area, namely all the optional subjects and extracurricular activities. And this is no coincidence. Dolina forbids his students from attending optional subjects and extracurricular activities. He forbids them from having contact with other classes, forbids their parents from interfering in his method, forbids low grades in German or French or any other subject, and any kind of indiscipline. Anyone who fails to greet the teacher in the corridor, who stands up too slowly or leaves too quickly, is punished. Offenses are penalized with essays. 300 words on playing football in enclosed spaces. 250 words on how to greet people politely. 450 words on the opening and closing of doors. As the years pass, the word count increases, and you will have to stay behind in the classroom writing on at least 1 or 2 days, and in extreme cases up to 2 weeks, while the others are out in the grounds or in one of the recreation rooms. Afterwards, Dolina marks the essay, returns it, and you spend another day writing 3 sentences for every serious error, which must then also be marked. There are days when there is no let-up for 10 hours straight. First come lessons, then a quick lunch, then the essay, followed by a study period, meaning homework and revision, during which Dolina continues to keep an eye on you. At 4 o'clock, you are allowed down to the buttery for 15 minutes to get a roll and a chocolate or vanilla milk. And then there's another study period in complete silence until at 5:30, or more often than not 5:45, and sometimes even 6 o'clock. Dolina lets you pack up and go home. Then you're free until 8 o'clock the next morning. But in truth, you're not free even then. Because if you're out somewhere in Vienna, there's always the possibility of bumping into Dolina. You might be coming out of the Apollo cinema at 9:30, and suddenly he'll be there in front of you. And it's just like being at school. The power imbalance remains, and you can work out what will happen the next day in your German or French lesson, because Dolina's system of education is based on the motto that you can't dance at 2 weddings with one backside. And being out in the evening counts as one wedding, as a distraction from school, as a sign that you believe you've learned enough already, a transgression that cannot be tolerated. Dolina needs your full attention, and therefore he believes he must restrict his students' lives. That attention is not only required for grammar and orthography, which fall within his subject area, or for all the other topics he teaches, because they interest him personally, although they're outside of the remit of a German and French teacher. Bel canto operas, for instance. European ruling dynasties and the Catholic Church, ballet and architectural history. But, above all, for an area that is very much part of his subject, but which he interprets quite differently from what the curriculum envisages: literature.